Hi, I wanted to take some time with you today and just share some thoughts I was having as I was out here in the yard doing some cleaning up. I love yard work, and a lot of times when I get out here, it's just a great way for me to kind of get outside, get out of the house, get in the open air, and sweat a little bit and just get a lot of chores done that I don't really get to do during the week. So weekends for me are usually spent just kind of going around and cleaning up the yard. This weekend I kind of spent some time chopping down, or starting to chop down a tree, and it really started getting me thinking about some discussions that I've been hearing in the fitness industry about the differences between reductionist view and longitudinal view on functional anatomy. And I know that's kind of crazy. Okay, we put together the working in the yard with views on functional anatomy. That's just how my brain ticks. So I would like to go through and just share with you some of those thoughts that I had. And one thing that I really started looking back into as I started going through some of these chores, my grandfather actually spent a lot of time with me out in this very yard, showing me kind of the ropes and some of the different skill sets, I guess, that I would need to start having in order to get the yard taken care of and to do the chores as he wanted me to do. And when I got out this weekend, I really started noticing that I was going through some of the same chores and some of the same routines that he taught me 10 to 15 years ago. And as I started thinking about those things, I started noticing, well, not only did I have some of the same skill sets and some of the same day-to-day tasks that I would normally do with him, but a lot of those tasks are now enhanced over those 10 to 15 years. And he's passed away now, but it really started making me realize that, wow, well, I had this point of view that my grandfather taught me, and over 10 to 15 years, it was almost the same skill set has still been acquired and still been used, but has almost been updated. And it got me thinking again about this point of reductionist versus longitudinal anatomy and how we view the body. And we're starting to hear more and more about global movement, and we hear about how this incredible body has the ability to move in 3 dimensions, and of course we know that we have this ability to move forward, to move backward, to move side to side. We have this amazing ability to be able to move in all planes, multiplanar movement, and even in functional movements, but we've never really been able to grasp the whys and the hows. And that's where we start to see this reductionist view and this longitudinal anatomy view of the human body starting to come together and mesh so beautifully. And so what I would like to do is just spend some time looking at that and really kind of seeing, well, what are the whys and hows, and how do we get from this point of view of a reductionist view to a longitudinal view? And when we first start thinking about that, the reductionist view obviously is going to be looking at the body in segments, and taking a reductionist view, we would take an isolated body part, we would look at the origin to insertion of a specific muscle and look at the action and functioning of that specific muscle, only that specific muscle. When we look at longitudinal anatomy, we start to look at this integrated view of the human body, literally from toes to nose, looking at different lines of fascia or myofascial meridians that we have learned from Thomas Myers and his research group, and also now putting those theories and those practices into play through a lot of the practical applications seen through PTA Global. And so what we start to understand and realize is that, wow, the body actually has this amazing ability to start to move 3-dimensionally, but not only just to move, but to enhance through movement. And so relating back to kind of the skill sets that my grandfather taught, it was almost, well, those skill sets weren't wrong in any way. They were actually great because they set a very good foundation for me to enhance and evolve off from, and do the chores and the tasks that I performed this weekend, getting the yard clean. When we look at reductionist view and a longitudinal anatomy, it's almost the same. It's almost the same mirror image. We have this reductionist view that has set the foundation for the fitness industry and everything that we have known. We've looked back and been able to piece apart how the body works in segments, and as an overall whole, have a better understanding through functional anatomy now and a longitudinal view of the body, how we can start to enhance movement based on how the body is actually structured, based on scientific research through Thomas Myers and his group. So as we start to look at that, and as we start to really evolve our understanding of human movement, we can start seeing the practical applications of that human movement through this three-dimensionality and a sphere of function, which we'll begin talking about later. When we start to look at the body's ability to move, we want to get into just some basic concepts. How does fascia work, and how do we start to allow the body to receive energy and unload energy? And so we'll look at fascia's ability to load and unload energy. And our body, as we know, is an energy conduit, meaning that it loves energy. It craves the ability to receive energy, to dissipate energy through certain motor patterns that will eventually perform. When we look at this ability for the body to be able to have load to unload, we'll look at the actual fascia and its ability to lengthen and shorten. So when we start looking at that basic principle, I always use the analogy and start to bring in my sister. My kid's sister is a year younger than I am. And one of my most favorite things that I used to do would be to pop her with a rubber band. And so if my sister was standing 10 to 15 feet from me, what I would love to do is sneak up behind her and pull back that rubber band and give her a good pop, usually in the back or the back side, just so I could give her a nice surprise. That has a lot to do with the same relativity with fascia and how fascia moves. So as I start to pull back that rubber band, and I really want to get a good pop on my sister, I'll pull that rubber band back, and the longer I pull it back, the elasticity of that rubber band can be seen the same as fascia, a line of fascia. So as I pull back, I'm actually loading potential energy into that rubber band to then be let go and unloaded so force can be generated and I can reach my sister with the rubber band. Same thing happens with fascia. So as we begin to lengthen fascia across a line of pull, we'll have a loading of potential energy. As we let go and have force production, or the motor pattern, we have energy, an energy efficient system that unloads that potential energy that was stored within that fascia. And so, as an example, what I did was started thinking about this as I was going through cutting down this tree. And so if I did the same thing and I was looking at either a spiral line, which we'll get into more along myofascial meridians, or a functional line coming across the body, I could do the same thing. I could start looking at how am I loading potential energy into a line of fascia and then being able to unload as I want to have a certain motor pattern. So if I'm going through and I'm loading potential energy across a line of fascia with the desired line of pull, I can then unload that same energy and have force production. So we'll have a load to unload, and a load to unload, a load to unload, load to unload. So we'll start to see that as we start to move, just the basic concepts of load to unload allows us to start to understand just the basic fundamental principles of that fascia. Now what we'll get into is an understanding of that longitudinal anatomy through functional anatomy. So we'll start to look at, from literally toes to nose, superficial back line, we'll look at a superficial front line, lateral lines, functional lines, spiral lines, and also arm lines. And these lines all allow us to move in that three-dimensional realm and give us the three-dimensionality of movement, or a better sphere of function. So I encourage you to go to www.ptaglobal.com to learn a little bit more about this practical application side. And if you haven't become a Facebook fan of PTA Global yet, do that as well.